Welcome to On Spec, the podcast that does slow journalism, the kind that takes time, telling stories that make you think, feel, and act to do good beyond your own borders. My name is Nafisa Haji, and I'm your guest host for this season, Lethal Dissent, Iran's Hunt for its Citizens Abroad. In our last episode, Woman from the CIA, we learned of an American connection to the attempted kidnapping of former Iranian naval officer Mohammad Rezai, who was lured by the promise of a job as captain of a boat owned by a mysterious American woman. Join me as we tune in to Fariba Nawa as she speaks with Turkish Member of Parliament Ceylan Akça, who gives us an explosive rundown of the baffling trial at the height of this investigation. An Iranian businessman is the linchpin responsible for the unraveling of Iranian espionage and the attempted kidnapping of Rezai. Finally, after months of Fariba and her outstanding team following the trial, the verdict is in on Lethal Dissent, Iran's Hunt for its Citizens Abroad. Episode 7, Verdict.
The Sağlams operation to kidnap the dissident Navy captain Mohammad Rezai lasted 40 days. Then it was foiled. But even though it failed, it shook Rezai.
بعد از اینکه این اتفاقات افتاد و دیدم که اصلا من نمیتونم اینجا.
See, after this incident, I didn't know who was my friend or foe. I didn't know if anyone cared about me or thought about me.
من واسش مهمه. کی زندگی من واسش مهمه. کی نیست.
I can't help but think about another dissident here, the poet Mohammad Shabani, who fell from his balcony and died. He was also threatened. Perhaps he also didn't know who was friend or foe, what was real and what wasn't. How else might Iran have been involved in his death? What I learned from Rezai's story is that the way Iran inserts itself into the lives of dissidents is intimate and sly. What if Mohammad Shabani had neighbors who were spies or even assassins? What if his apartment was set up to look like a suicide, but wasn't? The evidence I've seen doesn't support these theories, but there's one obvious hole. The police didn't analyze the handwriting on the suicide letter found in Mohammad's apartment, so we did. Weeks tick by as we wait for the analysis, which gives me the time to think about the kidnapping plot against Rezai and consider what that court case against the Iranian operation has revealed. Rezai had been a captain in the Iranian Navy. Then he became a dissident in exile in Turkey. Iran's attempt to kidnap him showed patience. They were strategic. They found locals in Turkey willing to do their dirty work. I asked Rezai why he thinks Iran went through all that trouble. The goal for the regime is to say we have power. We can take Mohammad Rezai of the Navy, kidnap him, return him to Iran, put him on trial and execute him. Then my other colleagues would get scared and not defect.
You're saying that you don't feel important because they targeted you. It's more about a lesson, teaching the others in the military a lesson that if we capture someone like Mohammad Rezai, we're going to capture all of you.
The last thing Iran wants is members of its military breaking rank, going AWOL. They can't afford to lose skilled soldiers, not only because it's bad for morale.
The most important reason. چون میگن آقا ما از زمانی که مثلا شما رو
The most important reason. From the moment we sign on until the Navy needs you, you have to stay in the system up to 25-30 years. We invest millions getting you trained.
میلیون ها تومان هزینه میشه بابت اینکه مثلا ما در زمانی که دانشجو بودیم مثلا سفر هند رفتیم.
Rezai wasn't just a dissident, he was an investment. The plot against Rezai showed how valuable he really was, but only the surface of the kidnapping operation was visible to Rezai. It went so much deeper. The Sağlams were the Turkish family who did the kidnapping work, and behind the Sağlams there was a web of conspirators. Those conspirators weren't only angling to capture Rezai, they had a list of other targets. The court case against the Sağlams and their conspirators threatened to expose how deep the operation went. The case churned on for most of 2023. The Turkish press paid attention, not only because of the salacious details, but also because it's rare for the Turkish government to take public action against Iran. For months, my colleague Beril Eski and I sat in the courtroom witnessing a rare rupture in the relationship between Iran and Turkey. It wasn't always riveting. In Turkey, the judges do most of the questioning, and in this case, the defendants were sometimes given a long leash. There were monologues, long tangents, and tons of conflicting testimony. Outside the courtroom, we were able to ask some questions ourselves. We see one of the Sağlams. It's Erdal, the one who Rezai told me threatened him with a taser in the BMW. He's got a full head of silver hair. We don't see his lawyer. We introduce ourselves. He stands close to me, looking me straight in the eye, and then he starts talking.
Bak, Muhammed yani İranlı bazı şahısların şizofren olabilecekleri, akıl sağlıklarının yerinde olmadıklarını düşünüyor.
Okay.
$1 15 TL'ydi.
Okay.
Demek ki bir Türk vatandaşı 15 tane Türk tutuklandı. Yani bir kişinin lafıyla, değil mi? Bir kişi söyledi. Alman vatandaşları casuslukla suçlansın, bir tane Türk değnekle onu döverler. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
He walks away.
Okay, what did he say?
I don't know how to translate it. So he said he believes that the Iranians involved in the case might be suffering from schizophrenia.
So I did not expect that defense. Erdal was charged with espionage, kidnapping, and being a member of a criminal organization. He denies the charges. Another Sağlam told the police in court that he went to Yalova to visit the thermal baths there. He has kidney stones and heard the hot springs help. He claimed the Sağlams all went to Yalova because the kidney stones are a family problem. He said when he and the Sağlams crossed paths with Rezai, they thought he was mentally ill and tried to help him. But when talking with us, Erdal proposed conspiracy theories. He implies that the entire court case was somehow related to a failed coup against the president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, that the coup plotters are hiding in the government and targeting the defendants. The coup was launched on July 15, 2016.
And he says there are like 15 defendants and the July 15, so he's like, this is the underlying codes of what's happening.
The other thing is that there are 16 defendants, not 15, like Erdal says. So the code 15 doesn't hold up.
So these guys all have this alternative story of what is really happening, right? And because they're not guilty.
All 16 defendants denied being part of a criminal organization, kidnapping, or spying. Except for one. His name is Murtaza Sultan Sanjari. He confessed. He spilled the story of the kidnapping operation to the police in detail. He repeated his story twice in 2 interrogations, then again in court. It's been consistent. Sanjari was a businessman, of sorts. He's Iranian.
He started getting involved in trade in 2004 in Iran, and then by 2009, he started doing more trade with Turkey. So Turkey-Iran trade relations, that's where he was more involved.
That's Ceylan Akça.
I'm a member of parliament with an opposition party called People's Equality and Democracy Party. I represent a city called Diyarbakır.
She followed the court case carefully because she says it exposed Turkey's dark underworld of organized crime. She says she fears corruption might poison state institutions. And the facts of this case, how cozy the Sağlams eventually got with government officials, make her worry it's too late.
This is what happens when countries have no rule of law. This makes me lose hope in this country, and also it drives me to work harder.
Sanjari's confession grabbed her attention. Here's why. Sanjari was present for the most important meetings that set the kidnapping plot in motion. He saw all the planning. He knew how the different conspirators were involved and what they did. His testimony is a catalog of damning anecdotes. He doesn't look as menacing as his actions might suggest. Sanjari looks bookish. He's got chubby cheeks, glasses, and coiffed brown hair. In a picture on Facebook, he's standing on a staircase wearing an off-white suit with his arm resting on a marble banister. The police's digital forensics and surveillance results back up a lot of what Sanjari says. Not only that, one of the Sağlams cracked during police questioning and corroborated much of Sanjari's testimony. What follows is his story of the kidnapping plot that landed all the defendants in court. Sanjari speaks Farsi and Turkish. In 2017, he started working for a guy in Iran who imported airplane parts to Iran's Air Force. He said he did accounting for his company. Sometimes his work would take him to Turkey. By 2019, Turkey was becoming Sanjari's home base.
So I actually Googled him and I saw a LinkedIn profile of him, and there he says he's a business specialist with the Sağlam company. Sanjari starts working with Sağlam.
Sağlam's company, by Sağlam, sells weapons. Its customers include the Turkish police and Turkish military. Sanjari helped move things along. Then in February 2019, while he's working for Sağlam, Sanjari hears from his old boss, the guy who imported airplane parts to Iran's Air Force. He said he needed Sanjari's help. There was an Iranian he was trying to find in Turkey. His name was Mash'ali Firuzeh. Sanjari's old boss said Firuzeh was on the run.
He was with the Iranian Air Force.
And then he fled. Sanjari's former boss, the guy who imported airplane parts for the Iranian Air Force, which, by the way, means he was evading Western sanctions on Iran's military, his name is Hosseini. He didn't just do business that ran afoul of Western sanctions. Hosseini had multiple passports, ID cards with different names.
Clearly, you have to be with the intelligence to have this many identifications and passports.
When Hosseini asked Sanjari for help finding the dissident military officer Firuzeh, Sanjari says he can help.
So he says he could talk to Sağlam and then, get the operation going.
All right, like almost a bounty hunter type of thing. Sanjari sets up the relationship. Ehsan will find Firuzeh and bring him back to Iran for Hosseini. It's a deal. Hosseini flies to Turkey to supervise the hunt. Sağlam searches for Firuzeh, but keeps hitting dead ends. They can't find him. Hosseini's not happy. He asks to be taken to the nearest airport and flies home to Tehran, angry. But once he leaves, Ehsan has success.
Ehsan actually spots Mash'ali Firuzeh, but he doesn't tell Hosseini his whereabouts. He wants to delay him a bit. That might be because he wants to show his value or delay or just, show that he's capable of the job, but he doesn't want to do it so fast.
What Ehsan does do is he devises a plan to get Firuzeh back to Iran and enlists the help of his brothers and cousins. Their plan is to trick Firuzeh.
It appears that the Sağlam gang convinced him that he would be taken to Iraq and then from there to Israel.
Israel often welcomes military dissidents if they're prepared to defect from Iran. Firuzeh was on board with the plan. Sanjari and Ehsan flew with him to Van, a Turkish town on the border of Iran. Van could plausibly be on the way to their destination in Iraq, which was supposedly a waypoint on the way to Israel. But Van is also so close to Iran.
If I were a dissident that was running away from Iran, I wouldn't go anywhere near it where they would find me. But they convinced him, and he took that flight.
And why convince these people? Why not just throw them in a sack and carry them across the border?
I think they're going these lengths just to avoid anything that would raise the case publicly. Like, if there was a shooting or being caught at a police checkpoint, then that would raise the question publicly and then media, and then that would become, the case would become impossible to proceed with.
The kidnapping process was slow, but it was also about stealth, and it worked. Firuzeh was taken across the border from Van in Turkey to Iran. It's not clear how, but once the job was done, Sağlam was paid $28,000. Hosseini, the airplane parts guy, delivered the money in person on the border in Van.
And I think that was the initiation ceremony for Sağlam, because this money, 28K, is nothing in other trade deals that he does.
When the kidnapping ring was finally busted and the Sağlams and their conspirators were tried in court, the prosecutor admitted that the Turkish government had lost track of Firuzeh. The prosecutor wrote in the indictment that he didn't know if Firuzeh was alive or dead in Iran. My sources in Iran tell me Firuzeh is still alive. First, he was in Evin prison, which Human Rights Watch says is notorious for torture. His cell block was called Ward Aleph, run by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Then he was transferred to a secret military prison. My sources found it. It's next to a multi-lane highway in Tehran, the Chamran Expressway. It has what looks like 2 huge helicopter landing pads. It's where the Iranian government keeps military personnel who are accused of spying or defecting to hostile countries, specifically Israel. After Firuzeh was successfully kidnapped, Hosseini, the airplane parts guy, invited Ehsan Sağlam to Iran. He invited Sanjari too, to translate, since Ehsan couldn't speak Farsi. His presence as a translator is what later made him such a powerful witness. He was literally in the middle of the most incriminating conversations throughout the plot. So Ehsan and Sanjari flew into Ayatollah Khomeini International Airport in Tehran, where Ehsan was treated like a VIP. He was escorted through a private part of the airport.
So only if you are the official of a country. These are only available to high bureaucrats, elected officials, state officials, diplomats. You would be allowed through this section that is called VIP.
And there was a welcoming party waiting for Ehsan.
He's welcomed and received by Hosseini and other intelligence officers. It went all the way high to the highest intelligence officers. For example, we have the head of Iranian military intelligence.
But the red carpet treatment ended at the airport. Ehsan wasn't taken to a luxury hotel. Instead, the intelligence officers took him to a safe house in the suburbs for interrogation. They had questions.
And there he spends a long time. He's actually questioned by some of these high officials.
They wanted to know why Ehsan had withheld information from Hosseini. Why hadn't he told him where Firuzeh lived as soon as he knew?
And they asked him why he made some issues in the kidnapping of Mashali Firuzeh when he could have gotten the kidnapping faster, but he took his time and, he didn't do as they asked him.
But the intelligence officers didn't rough Ehsan up. They wanted him to explain how he could be useful to Iranian intelligence.
And Ehsan says, there are 3 ways that I could be beneficial to you. One being the kidnapping of Iranian dissidents from Turkey to Iran. 2, being money laundering or bringing money from Africa. And 3, finding safe houses of Israeli intelligence in Iran.
Those were big promises, but just promises. Ehsan needed to deliver. So he made one more pitch to Iranian intelligence, tailor-made to kidnapping dissidents in Turkey. He told them he had a friend who was a prosecutor in Istanbul.
He was previously the prosecutor of terror-related charges.
His name was Davud Yilmaz, and he had access to confidential information that Iran would definitely want. A database for prosecutors, judges, and those involved in a case called UYAP, UYAP.
UYAP is where everything that is a record of you, that could be your address, your ID, your registration, that goes on UYAP.
A spy with access to the UYAP database could search for any asylum seeker in Turkey and find their address in seconds. The database was a treasure trove. Iran sends Ehsan Sağlam back to Turkey and assigns him a new target, a former Navy captain, Mohammad Rezai. Ehsan and his family members launch into action. But what happens next, behind the scenes, leads not only to the failure of the operation to kidnap Rezai, but the downfall of the entire kidnapping ring. Part of the problem, Hosseini, the Iranian airplane parts importer and spy, had lost faith in Ehsan Sağlam. He was too slow in the past, too shifty. For now, he lets Ehsan and the Sağlams go ahead with the hunt for Rezai. Ehsan finds Rezai in the Turkish town of Yalova quickly. Then Ehsan and his brother and cousins set up shop in Yalova, where Rezai's working in the kebab shop, and they began their slow process of trying to earn Rezai's trust. But this time, Hosseini doesn't want any delays. He decides to cut Ehsan out of the whole operation. He wants to meet the prosecutor, Davud Yilmaz, himself, in person. Sanjari, who's been on the sidelines watching the operation unfold up until this point, was the guy who could facilitate and translate for this meeting. So Hosseini flies to Istanbul and asks Sanjari to make the introduction.
So Sanjari and Hosseini go to the courthouse where Davut Yilmaz is working. They first talk to his secretary and they say they want to meet with Davut Yilmaz. He first rejects meeting them. He says he doesn't know them. But when they tell the secretary that they come from Iran, Davut Yilmaz lets them in. They sit down, they have tea, they, have a good relation.
And then Hosseini gets down to business. He tells Davut Yilmaz he wants to hire him to kidnap the Iranian dissident, Rezai.
And then Davut Yilmaz accepts the offer in exchange for $50,000.
Davut Yilmaz then hires 2 former police officers to do the dirty work. With the special access he's granted as a prosecutor, Yilmaz is able to easily find out the UYAP database, everything the officers will need to ensure the kidnapping is a success.
He goes on UYAP on August 30, 2019. He checks the location of Mohammed Rezai and he gives this information to his man, to his police officers that work with him.
All searches in the UYAP database are tracked, so the system logged Yilmaz's search for Rezai and its history. Authorities later found this. The former police officers turned kidnappers drive to Yalova. They get there and pull into a gas station.
They run into the Sağlam gang. They actually get into a fight, and then they have to abort the operation.
Back in Istanbul, the prosecutor Davut Yilmaz is furious. He didn't know the Sağlams were also chasing Rezai. He calls Sanjari and asks, "How many teams are you giving this job to?" After the fight at the gas station with the other kidnapping team, that's when Ehsan Sağlam gets sloppy. It seems Ehsan realizes he's being cut out of the operation, and that if he's going to kidnap Rezai, he has to do it now. So he and the rest of the Sağlams intercept Rezai on his bike ride home from work. They persuade him to get into the car, threaten him with a taser, tell him Iranian intelligence is coming to kidnap him, which ironically is true, and they assure him, "We're here to save you." But it all falls apart, the entire operation. There were 16 defendants in the court case against the kidnapping ring. That doesn't include Hosseini, the airplane parts guy and Iranian intelligence officer. The indictment says he, quote, could not be apprehended. For the rest of them, Sanjari's confession was the driving force that took them all down.
He leaked all the information, everything about the case. He spoke all the details, but he refrains from describing Hosseini as a member of the Iranian intelligence, interestingly.
Why do you think he confessed?
Sanjari claims that his child is in the hands of Iranian regime and that he's threatened by them and there's nothing for him to lose and that he was already tortured by them, so he's not the person responsible for all these crimes.
Sanjari says when he told Iranian intelligence he didn't want to work on any more kidnappings, they took him to a hotel room and beat him. He says nothing like that ever happened in Turkey. Do you think he'd rather be in prison in Turkey than sent back to Iran?
I mean, in a million scenarios, I think Sanjari would choose to be in a Turkish prison than an Iranian one. In one of the hearings, when the judge is questioning him doing this cross-examination, he asks him if he was tortured by Turkish police, and then he says, I swear to God, nothing happened to me here. Nobody laid a finger on me, nobody tortured me in Turkey.
In his court testimony, Sanjari insisted that if he was returned to Iran, he'd be accused of being a traitor and executed. Sanjari's still in prison. He was convicted of espionage and kidnapping. His sentence is 16 years and 8 months, but he insists he's innocent because he was just a translator, a middleman. We sent a lawyer to meet him for a jailhouse interview. He reiterated the details that can be read in the court documents. And he asked for protection. He said he can't go back to Iran. He might fear he could be extradited or that he could be part of a prisoner swap with Iran. He showed our lawyer photos of red scars on his back and said he was tortured by Iranian intelligence. He said he hoped the United States would intervene and offer him asylum. If they did, he said he has more to say and is prepared to tell them everything he knows. After almost a year and a half, the court case finally came to a close on September 28, 2023. Beryl and I are standing in front of the court before the verdict is announced. Everyone is feeling something right now. We just spoke to Erdal Sağlam, who was allegedly involved in trying to kidnap Mohammad Rezai, and he claims innocence completely. And he says he's feeling like the ocean, calm like the ocean, he says. The bailiff announces the proceedings are about to go on. They let in a select number of people. My colleague Beril Eski heads in. I stay outside for half an hour. Then people start coming out. People look happy. They're coming out now. So Beril was inside. She's out. She's going to tell us. There's a lot of tears and hugging going on. It looks like a lot of people are acquitted. Yes, many of the peripheral defendants were acquitted, but I doubt the main defendants were happy with the results. Here's the verdict. Davud Yilmaz, the former terror prosecutor, 11 years, 8 months. The cops on Davud Yilmaz's kidnapping team, 6 years and 8 months. Sanjari, 16 years, 8 months. Now here are the Sağlams. Erdal, the one who threatened Rezai with the taser, 6 years, 8 months. Ismail, the one who spoke English to Rezai to win his trust, 15 years. Hakan, the cook who couldn't cook, 15 years. And Ehsan Sağlam, 15 years, 10 months. Some parts of the sentences are deferred or suspended for good behavior or other circumstances at the judge's discretion. It's unlikely they'll serve the full sentences, ultimately. I tell Beril, but surely they'll go to prison now.
No, they were released from prison until the conviction is finalized. They were released from prison except Sanjari. So only Sanjari will continue to serve in prison. But they're going to be outside with the judiciary control of not leaving the country until the conviction is finalized at the appeal, which is going to take years.
Charged and convicted of espionage and kidnapping and allowed to roam free. What could they do while they're out walking the streets of Turkey? I know one thing Ehsan Sağlam did. He called me. It was an unknown number. I thought it was a prank call. I hung up. Then he peppered me with a series of WhatsApp messages. I still don't know if what he said to me was a veiled threat. He told me, "What's wrong with you? Why are you trying to ruin my reputation? I'll take you to the prosecutor."
I'm Nafisa Haji. Lethal Dissent is reported by Fariba Nawa, reporting in Turkey by Beril Eski. The series is produced by Chris Harlan Dunaway. Our editor is Ibi Caputo. Additional research by Umar Farouk, fact-checking by Beril Eski and John Klepotowski. Özge Sebzici is our photographer and multimedia producer. Artwork for the podcast is by Hatice Garib. Musical score and sound design by Uzair Ahmed. Legal review by Eric Brass. This story wouldn't be possible without support from the Pulitzer Center and Radio Zamaneh. Thank you to our partners, The Verge and PRX. Special thanks to executive producer for The World, Dan Lothian, and managing editor for The World, Tinku Ray, our friend ER, Shahnam Gulshani, Adnan Devrim, Hamish Brown, Kate Ellis, Stephen Smith, Levi Bridges, Banu Azizian, Adisha Azizian, Yithan Ujair, Rishad and Alan at Splice Media, and to the Iranians who helped us, whose full names we can't use for security reasons. Thank you, HM, AM, and MB. So, the verdict is in. Many of the colorful defendants we met earlier at trial found guilty, the harshest sentence given to the Iranian operative who confessed to most of the plot. And yet many of the main characters we've gotten to know are allowed to walk free for now, awaiting the finalization of their convictions. As Fariba is left to wonder what they might be up to next, one of them contacts her, aware of the story she's working on, issuing a veiled threat in an attempt to get her to stop this investigation. I am Nafisa Haji. Join us in 2 weeks as Fariba Nawa tries to assess the danger in the threats coming from one of the subjects of her investigation, also exploring global espionage at the highest levels on Lethal Dissent Iran's Hunt for its Citizens Abroad, Episode 8, Officials.